My typical advice for runners looking to save a few bucks is to skip the budget models and buy last year's flagships. But this is the $110 Propel V4, and it just may have me rewriting my rules. Yo, what's going on everybody? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews shoes here on YouTube. And today I'm gonna talk to you guys about the New Balance FuelCell Propel version 4. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that New Balance sent me for the purpose of a review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the New Balance Propel version 4. First, let's go over some specs on this shoe. In the shoe, we've got FuelCell, which is New Balance's racing foam, which is kind of like the surprising headline for me when I'm looking at this $110 shoe. Now, there's actually 2 layers of FuelCell in here, and in between, we've got kind of a harder, more dense version of TPU that's acting very much like a plate, and you can even see it on the side here too, indicating that they're using it also as a little bit of a stability element. We've got 6mm heel drop on this shoe, meaning that there's 6mm more stack out in the heel than there is in the forefoot. I feel like that's going to be a comfortable drop for most runners. Now, taking a look at the outsole of the shoe, we got a really good amount of rubber coverage. There are some kind of exposed portions of foam, and there are some cutouts here in the forefoot that's going to help aid in making sure that the shoe stays nice and flexible. Up top, we have a really straightforward mesh upper. Not a lot of stuff going on here at all. They're calling it a no-sew upper, so there's not a lot of places where there's seams that could accidentally rub or cause chafing on your foot, but it is a fairly breathable material. The one area where I feel like I'm getting a little bit less quality in the shoe is in the tongue. While I do appreciate that it is very thin and not too heavily padded, it just kind of feels a little bit on the cheaper side, especially because of the fact that it's not gusseted, so it is flopping around here a little bit. As far as the rest of the heel cup goes, it's also kind of minimal, but in a way that I like. I don't love shoes that are super puffy in this heel cup area, so the light amount of padding in here, which may have originally been like a budget decision, for me actually really works, and I find it's much more comfortable when there's less kind of stuff going on back here. As far as the heel cup goes, there's a little bit of structure. It feels like there's kind of something a little bit rubbery back here, not very rigid, but enough to give this heel some shape and make sure that it still fits well on the heel and on the ankle, even though there isn't a bunch of cushy padding. Overall, I feel like for $110, it doesn't feel like you're cutting too many corners on this shoe. I actually find it to be pretty comfortable. It is a little bit on the heavy side though, coming in at 302 grams and 10.7 ounces. All right, now that we talked about some of the specs for this shoe, the stuff that you can Google yourself if you really wanted to, let's talk about what it was like to actually run in the shoe. Now, I think the overall sensation that I got from this shoe is that it is a little bit firmer and a little bit more stable than I tend to prefer in my shoes. But I think for what they're trying to accomplish with this shoe, I think that they've kind of really nailed it. FuelCell is a very squishy foam that has a lot of movement. It compresses a lot, but it also decompresses in a really exciting way. But it can be a little bit unstable for some runners, so I feel like that's where they've added this TPU plate. Not only does it kind of like look really cool and it's a nice like kind of technology feature you could talk about, I think the way that they really use it and implement it in this shoe is to create a little bit more stability, so that way when you're landing on this shoe, no matter how your foot kind of lands, it still stays a relatively stable platform for you to land on. And what that translates to for me, for someone who doesn't love stability shoes and doesn't really need stability elements in the shoes, it just ends up being like a little bit firmer than I think FuelCell can be, but it's still a very pleasant experience for a shoe at this $110 price point. Now, I took this shoe out for some easy runs, and I felt like the shoe was really great for kind of my everyday daily training. Took it out for some strides as well, where I had to pick up the pace a little bit. And I felt like for something as kind of brief as strides, the Propel version 4 can certainly handle that task very well. But there is also a very wide platform that you're landing on. It's a shoe that is trying to enhance its stability by being a little bit wider in that forefoot. And I feel like the weight plus that width in the forefoot of the shoe kind of makes it so that way I'm not sure I'd want to do a ton of workouts in this shoe, but something that's a little bit shorter duration repetition, I think it can totally handle it really well. And at those faster speeds, that slight density that this shoe has turns into something that's nice and bouncy and lively. Now, I also took this shoe on a long run, a 2.5 hour run, and I felt like the shoe did really well. And like, I think ultimately what I'm getting from this shoe is a sense of there's nothing bad about it, but there's nothing terribly exciting about it either. And overall, that's exactly what a $110 shoe needs to be. It has to kind of appeal to the greatest common denominator of people. And for someone that loves squishy and maybe slightly unstable shoes, it's gonna feel a little bit less exciting than I'd prefer for a shoe, but I feel like a lot of people are gonna be able to get along with it really well. So let's talk about those people that I think this is going to be best for. I think this shoe is going to be best for runners who are looking for a safe bet entry point into running. Maybe you've been running in some really cheap shoes before and you're looking to get your first quote unquote real running shoe. I feel like this is one that you're going to be very happy with. It's going to be a nice upgrade for you, but you're not like investing or I hate that word investing. You're not spending so much money as some of the other kind of like daily trainer flagships that are out there that might be in that $140 territory. So this is going to be a safe bet, and it's going to likely agree with you because it's got that stability element to it. It's still a neutral shoe, and it's got plenty of bounce for it for even some longer runs as well. I also think that this shoe is going to be really fantastic for parents who are looking to buy shoes for your kids. Maybe they're trying out track or cross country for the first time and you don't want to spend $140 to $180 for some shoes for a sport you're not sure if your kid's going to love. I feel like this $110 gives them a fighting chance at enjoying it, because if you buy that $60 shoe, I guarantee you they're not going to have as much fun running as they would if they had kind of like a real shoe that's actually designed to handle a regular amount of weekly mileage and even some racing for your kids. So I feel like this is a really good shoe, I would say, for some younger runners who are testing out whether they like cross country or track. Now, that's not to say that it's just for younger runners or newbies. I think that you seasoned runners out there are also going to appreciate it as that reliable workhorse type of shoe. Now, let's talk about some pairing options. So for a lot of you guys that are looking at this shoe, I don't think that you need pairing options. This is probably going to be the one and only one shoe that you're going to need for a really long time, because you're going to be able to use this for your everyday training and probably for your first couple of races as well. But if you're looking to find some more exciting race options that you might want to pair with the New Balance Propel 4, I feel like there is an obvious choice to me in New Balance, staying within the family, with the SC Elite version 3. Now this takes that same fuel cell foam, or it's both called fuel cell. I have a feeling that they've tweaked it a little bit to get this race ready version of it. And it's got that carbon fiber plate in the bottom. So this is a really great shoe for racing in, and also for doing those really fast workouts as you get ready for those longer races like half marathons and marathons. And another shoe that you can look at that's kind of in the same caliber is going to be the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. I feel like there's a little bit of extra firmness compared to the SC Elite version 3. So if you're preferring the firmness of the Propel 4 and you're looking for a racing shoe, I feel like the Endorphin Pro 3 is going to be the one for you. All right, now let's look at the buying guide for this shoe and get back to the original question of, does the Propel 4 make me rethink my general rule that you should not get budget options and instead look at last year's flagships? So let's find some other shoes in the marketplace that we can compare it to. The New Balance Propel 4 comes in at $110. I don't see it on any discounts yet because it pretty much has just come out, and it is a fantastic value at $110. And I think the easiest thing to compare to would be the Float Ride 5 from Reebok, because it's also a $110 shoe. It's got some stability elements with some plastic built into the shoe, and it's also a little bit firmer than I would like, but I feel like these two definitely go head to head, and that's kind of like the too easy choice because they're both $110. So let's actually look at some real comparison points. Let's take a look at Adidas first, and I think one shoe that lines up really well is going to be the Solar Glide 6. Now this is another shoe that has a really wide base and it has plastic stability elements kind of built into it. With Adidas, they call it their linear propulsion system, or linear, it's LEP, linear something propulsion, whatever. It's these plastic parts that make it so that the shoe stays a little bit stable. There is a EVA type of foam on top, and then there's a bottom layer of boosty goodness, and there's a lot of really plush padding all up in this shoe and in the tongue as well. This shoe is a lot heavier than the Propel 4, but I feel like they're kind of like very much toe to toe in terms of what they produce performance wise. And today, as of the time I'm filming this in May, the Solar Glide 6 is available for $108. I feel like these are two really close competitors, and maybe if you're buying this for your kids, they might prefer the 3 stripes over the New Balance, and so go it that way. But I would prefer the Propel 4 because it is a little bit lighter and a little bit more nimble. Although I think that the real comparison with Adidas is going to be the Adizero SL. This shoe has Light Strike and their Racing Foam Light Strike Pro in the forefoot and little puck insert. And I find this shoe to be a lot more exciting than the Propel 4. And it's actually from this year, but Adidas is weird with pricing. So sometimes shoes just go on sale. You can find this for $96. I feel like for $14 less, you're getting a better shoe and you're saving a little bit as well. It's just not as stable though as the Propel version 4. So that's the one way you might want to watch out for it. Now, I think let's look at another brand. If we take a look at what the Propel 4 does, I feel like it lines up in the ASICS lineup actually pretty well with last year's Cumulus 24. I feel like there are some stability elements in this shoe as well. There's gel in the heel and in the forefoot, and it's also definitely a workhorse type of trainer, really thick layer of rubber on the outsole, and nothing too flashy, but something that can handle all the miles. I feel like you can kind of cut and paste the description of one shoe and apply it to the other really well. And the Cumulus 24 right now is $80. And I think between these two shoes, I'd go with the Cumulus 24. You're saving 30 bucks over the Propel version 4. And I do think this works a little bit better in most of the situations that I would use the Propel 4 in. And I think the other thing to look at from ASICS is the Nova Blast 2. We're on the Nova Blast 3 right now. So this is last year's version, just like the Cumulus 24 is last year's Cumulus. This shoe was one of my favorite daily trainers from the year that it came out. A lot of fun. One of those shoes that some people might find to be too squishy, but I really find it exciting, and another shoe that I would prefer pretty much in all situations over the Propel version 4. Right now, the Nova Blast 2 is a little bit harder to find in a wide variety of sizes, so they might be harder to find, but if you can find it, I've been able to see it at $110, which is the exact same price as the Propel version 4. So, does the Propel 4 rewrite the rules on budget shoes? I'd say maybe a little. It has me being kind of less fierce on the notion that you shouldn't buy budget shoes. I feel like this is a totally acceptable budget shoe to buy. I feel like a lot of people are really like it, and I feel like it's punching way above its class in terms of what it's delivering in terms of performance for the price. But I still think, as we just saw here, there's a lot of really good options from last year's shoes where you can get in that same price range or even get cheaper and still get shoes that I think a little bit more exciting. If you have any other questions about the Propel version 4, put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?